Your child has not called in 11 days. You know because you counted. You told yourself you would not count, but you did, because that is what parents do when the silence stretches longer than it should. We count the days. We check the phone. We read old text messages just to hear their voice in our heads. We convince ourselves they are busy. We convince ourselves that everything is fine. And then at 2 in the morning, we lie there in the dark and ask the question we are too afraid to ask anyone out loud. Did I do something wrong? I am going to answer that question today, directly, honestly, and in a way that I promise will change how you see this situation completely. Because the answer is almost certainly no. You did not do something wrong, but something is happening. Something real and specific, and almost nobody is talking about it honestly, and the silence that is breaking your heart right now, the silence you have been carrying alone and interpreting as rejection, has a completely different explanation than the one you have been torturing yourself with at 2 in the morning. Stay with me, because what I am about to share does not just explain the silence, it gives you the power to change it. Starting today, I want to tell you about a moment I had with my own son. He is 42 years old, lives in Denver, Colorado. Good man, wonderful father, works incredibly hard, and for about 2 years, somewhere between his mid-30s and early 40s, his calls dropped from weekly to monthly to, some months, not at all. I did what most parents do. I internalized it. I told myself stories about it. I brought it up in ways that probably added guilt to an already complicated situation. And the more I pushed, the more the distance seemed to grow. Then one evening, he called me unexpectedly. It was late. The kids were in bed. And he said something I was not prepared to hear. He said, "Dad, I want to explain something. Every time I think about calling you, I get hit with this overwhelming feeling that I am failing you, that I am not showing up the way a good son should. And that feeling is so uncomfortable that sometimes I just cannot make myself pick up the phone. So I put it off, and then putting it off makes the feeling worse, and then calling feels even harder." I sat with that for a long time. My son was not calling less because he loved me less. He was calling less because the guilt of not calling enough had made the call itself feel impossibly heavy. That one conversation rewrote everything I thought I understood about adult children and silence, and aging and love. And today I am sharing it with you, because you deserve to understand what is actually happening on the other side of that quiet phone. Let me tell you the real reasons. Adult children go quiet after their parents turn 60. Not the lazy explanation. Not the selfish explanation. The real one. The one that will make you think completely differently about the silence starting right now. Real reason number 1. Their life is at peak overwhelm at the exact moment yours has become quieter. Your adult children right now are most likely somewhere between 35 and 50 years old, and that decade of life is without any exaggeration the most compressed, exhausting, relentlessly demanding stretch of modern American adulthood. They are managing careers at the most high-stakes stage, raising children of their own, carrying mortgages and debt, and schedules so full that sleeping 8 hours feels like a luxury they cannot afford. Many of them are already managing their own health concerns. Some are navigating marriages under significant strain. Some are dealing with financial pressure that sits on their chest like a physical weight every single morning. And here is the painful irony that nobody talks about openly. The quieter your life becomes after 60, the louder theirs gets. You have more time now. They have less time than they have ever had. Your days have opened up into something that finally has space in it. Their days have compressed to the point where a 20-minute phone call requires finding energy. They genuinely do not have at 10 o'clock at night when the children are finally asleep, and the dishes are done. And all they want is 5 minutes of silence before doing it all again tomorrow. This is not an excuse for the silence. It is an explanation, and there is a profound difference between those two things. My friend Robert, who is 72 and lives in Tampa, Florida, told me something his daughter finally said to him after years of painful tension about phone calls. She sat down with him at Thanksgiving and said, "Dad, I think about you every single day. But thinking about you and having the bandwidth to actually call you are two completely different things right now. And I need you to know that the silence is not about love. It is about survival." Robert told me that one sentence changed his entire relationship with his daughter, not because it solved anything logistically, but because it separated the silence from the meaning he had been attaching to it. For years, silence does not mean absence of love. In the life of a 40-year-old American parent managing everything at once, silence often simply means I am still standing. And today, that is enough. Real reason number 2. Watching you age is producing a grief they do not know how to carry. This one rarely gets spoken aloud, and I believe it is one of the most important truths in this entire conversation. Your adult children love you, and because they love you, watching you get older, noticing new limitations, hearing the subtle changes in your voice, being reminded at every interaction that time is passing and that you will not always be here. All of that produces a grief that most of them have no framework to process. Psychologists call it anticipatory grief, and it is far more common than most people realize. Here is how it shows up in behavior. Instead of leaning in and calling more frequently, which would mean confronting the reality of your aging directly, many adult children unconsciously pull back. They space out the calls. They keep conversations lighter and shorter. They avoid certain topics, not because they do not care, but because caring this deeply about someone they are slowly losing is almost too painful to sit with regularly. Your child may be pulling back, not because you matter less to them, but because you matter so much. The emotional weight of the relationship has become more than they currently know how to manage. Dorothy, who is 74 and lives in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, discovered this truth about her son James when he finally broke down during a visit. He admitted that every time he heard her voice on the phone, he was reminded of losing his father 3 years ago, and that the fear of losing her, too, was sitting so close to the surface that sometimes he simply could not make himself pick up the phone. Dorothy told me she cried for a long time after that conversation, not from sadness, from relief, because for 2 years she had been telling herself her son did not care enough to call. And in one honest conversation, she discovered he cared almost too much. Let me stop here and ask you something directly. What story have you been telling yourself about why your child does not call as often? Because the story we tell ourselves about the silence is almost always more painful than the silence itself. What if that story was simply not true? Real reason number 3. Unspoken guilt is making the calls harder, not easier. Your adult children almost certainly feel guilty about not calling more. The guilt is real, and it is constant. They think about it while driving to work. They think about it at night, scrolling their phones. They carry a low hum of shame about it that never fully goes away. And here is the painful truth about guilt that most people do not understand. Guilt does not make people call more. It makes them avoid the thing that produces the guilt. Every time they think about calling you and do not do it, the guilt increases. And as the guilt increases, the call feels heavier. And as the call feels heavier, the avoidance increases. It is a cycle that can run for months and even years without anyone naming it out loud. The most powerful thing a parent can do to break this cycle is simply to remove the guilt entirely. Not by demanding more calls. Not by expressing hurt about the silence, which adds more guilt to an already full tank, but by explicitly and genuinely releasing them from the weight of obligation. A simple message that says something like, "I know you are carrying a lot right now. I am not keeping score. I love you completely, and I am proud of everything you are managing. I am here whenever you need me." It's not weakness or surrender. It is one of the most strategically and emotionally intelligent things a parent can do, because when the guilt is lifted, the call becomes light again, and light things are easy to pick up. Real reason number 4. The relationship needs to evolve, and nobody has negotiated the new version. When your children were young, the relational dynamic was clear. You were the provider, the protector, the decision maker, and the emotional anchor. They came to you. You were the gravitational center of the family. As they moved into full adulthood, that dynamic needed to shift. But here is where the friction begins. Many parents over 60 are still operating from the old blueprint without realizing it. And many adult children are trying to navigate a new version of the relationship without having explicitly talked about what that new version looks like. What does this look like in real life? It looks like phone calls follow the same script every single time. Same questions, same updates, same dynamic, until the call starts feeling more like a required check-in than a genuine human connection. It looks like parents who share health worries in ways that leave their children feeling helpless, guilty, and emotionally depleted after every conversation. And it looks like adult children who love their parents but find the calls draining, rather than energizing. The relationships that genuinely thrive between adult children and aging parents are the ones where both people discover a new dynamic together, where the parent is genuinely curious about the adult child's inner life, not just their external circumstances, where conversations feel mutual rather than one direction, where the adult child hangs up the phone feeling seen and heard, and genuinely connected rather than checked off a list. My neighbor Helen, who is 69 and lives in Phoenix, Arizona, told me her relationship with her daughter completely transformed when she stopped asking about the grandchildren in the first 2 minutes of every call. Instead, she asked her daughter, "How are you doing?" Not the kids, not work, you. "How is your heart right now?" Her daughter called back 2 weeks later and said, "Mum, that was the best conversation we have had in years. Can we do that again?" They talk 3 times a week now. Not because anything logistically changed, because the dynamic changed. Real reason number 5. They do not know what you actually need from them. This one surprises people, but it is more common than almost anything else I have described. Most adult children genuinely do not know what kind of relationship their aging parent actually wants. They assume calls will involve worries, health updates, and emotional heaviness. They assume they will feel inadequate and guilty afterward. They assume the conversation will somehow remind them of everything. They are not doing well enough as a child. and so they avoid the thing they assume will feel hard. The solution is radical simplicity. Tell them directly and explicitly what you want, not what you need emotionally. Just what you want practically from your relationship right now. Something like, I do not need long calls. I just love hearing your voice for 10 minutes. Or, I would love a text photo every few days. It makes my whole morning. Or, I know you are busy. Can we just talk on your commute once a week? That would be enough when you make it specific, simple, and genuinely low pressure. You remove the uncertainty that feeds the avoidance. You give them a clear and achievable way to show up for you, and you make it easy to say yes. So what do you do starting today? Here are 5 things that have genuinely transformed relationships between parents and adult children for real people I know personally. Send short, low-pressure messages consistently. A text about something funny you saw. A voice memo describing your morning walk. A photo of something that made you think of them. These small, consistent touches maintain the thread of connection without creating the weight of a scheduled call. Ask better questions when you do talk. Instead of asking how the kids are, ask what has been the hardest part of your week. Questions that show genuine interest in their inner life rather than just their external circumstances. People call back the person who makes them feel truly seen. Share your own life with genuine enthusiasm. Talk about what you are learning, doing, and discovering. A parent who is actively alive, curious, and engaged with their own world gives their child something to be inspired by rather than worried about. Create one simple recurring touch point. A Sunday morning text exchange. A shared photo thread. A quick voice message every few days. Something gentle and consistent that keeps you connected without requiring anyone to carve out emotional energy they do not have. And most importantly, consciously choose a different story when the phone does not ring. Instead of them not caring, try, my child is carrying more than I can fully see right now. And they are still standing, and I am proud of them. That reframe is not denial. It is a more accurate and more compassionate understanding of what is actually happening. I want to close with something my son said to me recently. We talk every Sunday morning now. His idea, not because I asked, but because after that honest conversation in Denver, something shifted between us. The guilt lifted, the calls got lighter, and lighter things are easy to pick up. He called me last Sunday and said, Dad, I want you to know that you are one of my favorite people to talk to. I just needed to figure out how to do it without it feeling so heavy. I sat with that for a long time after we hung up. The silence was never about love. It was about weight. And the moment I stopped adding to the weight and started making myself easier to reach, everything changed. You have more power in this situation than you realize. Not the power to demand connection, but the power to create the conditions where connection becomes easy, natural, and something your child genuinely looks forward to. Start today. Send the voice memo. Ask the real question. Release the guilt. Lower the pressure. And watch what happens. Tell me in the comments. Does this resonate with your experience? What is the one thing from today you are going to try with your child this week? I read every single comment, and I want to hear your story. If this video helped you understand something that has been hurting you, please share it. Because somewhere right now, a parent is counting days and telling themselves a painful story that is simply not true. And somewhere, their adult child is carrying guilt that is making the call feel impossible. This video is for both of them. Subscribe to our weekly videos, because these are the honest, warm, real conversations about life after 60 that most people are too afraid to have out loud. Thank you for being here. Now go, send that voice memo,